Power Rangers is a multi-billion-dollar entertainment franchise created by media titan Haim Saban. An eccentric Israeli businessman, Saban saw the immense marketing potential of the Power Rangers, but then subsequently spent 10 years trying to get anybody to listen to his idea, something that was eventually realised thanks in part to Saban's Jewish heritage.
The nerds out there are telling us right now, they're screaming at us going, but Power Rangers isn't an original thing.
They are yelling at us, yes, Lucas, so we'll talk about that now. And I'd argue that Power Rangers is an original idea. It's just realised in an unconventional way, and people aren't familiar with what that way is. All of the action shots in every episode of the Power Rangers that has ever been aired are taken wholesale from a Japanese series called Super Sentai. And it's worth noting as well that after a while they did send through the costumes from Japan to America, so they could put the American actors in the costumes for, so they could film filler scenes and things like that. But almost all of the action scenes, even to this day, are still they just use Super Sentai footage. Why would you not?
It does sound like a ball ache to put together these clips from multiple episodes and whatnot, but I guess that means it's less of a ball ache than just filming stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. As much of a ball ache as it sounds to stitch together hours upon hours of contextless clips in a language you do not speak. Because the fun fact about the original series is that a lot of the people stitching together those action scenes didn't speak Japanese. It didn't matter.
No.
Because they were just going to re-record all the lines anyway, so it didn't matter what was being said in those scenes. Because they were just going to put their own sound effects over the top. But it was still cheaper than filming those action scenes themselves. And as I mentioned, that's a deal that continues to this day. Even the latest series of Power Rangers still uses the latest series of Super Sentai as its basis. And it is proven to be...
That's incredible.
It's incredible. And it's proven to be an incredibly beneficial deal for both Toei Entertainment, who own Super Sentai, and Saban Entertainment, and I now think Hasbro, who now own the Power Rangers series. Because, Saban just got unlimited footage to pick and choose from when creating his episodes, and Toei just got a shit ton of extra money they could use to fund the show and improve its special effects, culminating in my favourite Power Rangers moment of all time, where it is just every Power Ranger at once fights in a big fight scene.
Time to create a new legend!
And I have a huge nostalgia for the Power Rangers, and I wasn't aware of just how much I fucking love the Power Rangers. So I was just watching a random season on Netflix, because Netflix randomly has got all the Power Rangers out of nowhere. And the series gimmick was Legendary Ranger powers, where they can put the outfits on of previous Power Rangers and use their powers. And one of the episodes, they say, Legendary Ranger power, Mighty Morphin, and they put those costumes on, and I immediately lost my shit. I'm like, I had no idea I love the Power Rangers as much as this. As soon as I saw those outfits, I was like, oh, it's the Power Rangers!
Legendary Ranger mode! Mighty Morphin! It's Morphin time!
I fucking love the Power Rangers. It's so good. It's so bad as well, but it's also so fucking good.
Okay, where did the idea of just grabbing a bunch of Japanese footage even come from?
Well, that can be traced back to the aforementioned Haim Saban. And I know that his name is Haim, but I can't do that guttural sound that is necessary to pronounce his name correctly. And I think even he in interviews has said that. He'll say, my name's Haim Saban, or Haim Saban, if you can do that noise. And he acknowledges that not a lot of people can, so I'm Haim Saban. The story goes that Saban was on a business trip to Japan and was just flicking through TV in his hotel room, as you do, when you're bored and you've got nothing to do for half an hour. And an episode of Super Sentai came on the television, and he was just mesmerised by it. He was watching holy shit, this is awesome. I have no idea what's going on because I don't speak Japanese, but the action is really cool. And then he thought to himself, hang on a second. Every single one of these characters is wearing a helmet. If I took this footage and then just got an English voiceover, maybe I could turn it into a TV show. And more importantly, maybe I could turn it into a TV show for very little money. Because all you'd need to do was just film a couple of live action scenes of some cheap actors on a crap set and to create some kind of cohesive narrative to explain why those action scenes are taking place. And he was like, that's a great idea.
I think at this point it's fair to say that's a bloody good idea, yeah.
Yeah, Saban became a billionaire off the Power Rangers, but it was really difficult for him to sell the idea to people over in the West. And it was even more difficult for him to convince the Japanese studio who owned Power Rangers, or Super Sentai I should say, to give him the rights to it because they were baffled. Like, they didn't understand what he wanted to do. And the story goes that Saban marched into their office after finding out they owned this show that he'd seen. He had no fucking clue what it was. So he didn't speak Japanese. He just saw it and like, what is this? I must track down what this is and find out who owns it and then purchase it from them. He marched into Toei office like, I want to buy the rights to Power Rangers. Like, why? It's like, because it's great. And then he told them his idea to like film extra shots to like, you know, link together the action scenes and then just edit over them with an English voiceover. And they're like, but that's stupid. Why would you do it? No, it's a great idea. It'll work. Trust me. Can I have the rights to it? And the story goes that Toei were eventually convinced just by his sheer enthusiasm. They saw how much he loved Sentai. Like, well, he seems to love it. So, yeah, sure. If you can sell it, you've got the rights. And not just the rights, Lucas, the worldwide rights outside of Asia. So basically everywhere but Japan. So you had the worldwide rights to Super Sentai and, more importantly, the rights to all the toys. Which, keep in mind, were made in Japan, so you could just use the models that they did to make them over in the United States.
Yeah, and it's really baffling to me that he didn't like manage to sell those rights off immediately. Of just like, how do you sell this show? Just show them a shot of a Megazord and go, kids will fucking love this.
But that's the thing, though, because at the time, no one wanted to buy it. Like, everyone thought it was a stupid idea. Like, what is this show? It's crazy. It's colourful. Also, all the characters look weird. Because like, think about some of the monsters in Power Rangers, they do look very weird. So I can't imagine many kids wanting to buy toys of those things, but the Zords are like objectively very fucking cool looking, and the Power Rangers themselves are very visually striking. And something Saban noticed that I think is really interesting and speaks to his business acumen is that all of the characters in Super Sentai, when they were in costume, wore helmets, meaning that a child of any ethnicity or gender could picture themselves as any one of the characters on screen, meaning that it had universal appeal and that any child who liked the show could potentially like any character on it and then bitch loud enough at their parents to buy them a toy of it. And that's one of the things that made him realise the immense marketing potential of the idea if he could get anybody to listen to him. Saban spent 8 years trying to sell the idea to anybody who'd listen, and everybody turned it down because it was such, at the time, a wild idea. Like, you're going to take contextless footage in Japanese and put a voiceover on it and then film extra scenes to stitch this together? Why would you do that? That's a terrible idea. No, we don't want to fund this at all. Get out of our office, please, leave us alone. And during the time Saban was trying and failing to sell the idea of the Power Rangers to studios over in the West, Super Sentai had several seasons air, and people don't know, like the Power Rangers, Super Sentai would change the cast, the gimmick and the costumes every couple of years, which led to the Zyuranger.
What do you mean by Zyuranger, Karl? I'm very confused.
And I'm guessing, Lucas, you're not alone in being confused, so I should probably explain very quickly. And the story goes that after 8 years of having the door repeatedly slammed in his face by everybody who'd listened to him, Saban noticed that the season of Super Sentai that was currently airing was called, and I'm going to pronounce this fucking awfully, but Kyōryū Sentai Zyuranger, which to his ear sounded like Zyuranger.
I don't understand why this helps in any way.
Because Saban is Jewish, and he saw that as a sign.
Zyuranger. How's that for a coincidence? Zyuranger, there you have it.
Like, what?
Yeah, Lucas, that's literally it. Just, he saw that title, heard it said out loud, went, Zyuranger. I am a Zyuranger. It's a sign. Clearly, I am meant to sell this show. And it steeled his resolve enough for him to, put together a proper pitch that someone finally listened to. I believe it was someone at Fox, and they give him the go-ahead to make a pilot, and then subsequently 50 fucking episodes, and it's led to a several decade-long business partnership, during which time Saban sold the Power Rangers. The brand died, and this is really funny because one of the reasons the brand died is because they were reliant on the Super Sentai series, and one of the gimmicks they had during the time Saban didn't own it was trains. So they had train rangers. Yeah, he sold it for $500 million, and then bought it back a few years later for $200 million. and got profit on it. And then he sold it a couple years after that to Hasbro. I mean, if anyone out there has any doubts about how much Haim Saban fucking loves the Power Rangers, like, Lucas, this blew my mind when I found it out. Like, one of the things Saban used to do before becoming a businessman was he was a bassist in a band in Israel. And he, like, earned money writing theme songs for cartoons. And do you know where I'm going with this?
He didn't write the show's song, did he?
He wrote the theme song. And I don't know whether or not he played bass on it, but I'm going to choose to believe that he did, because that's fucking awesome. But he wrote the theme song as well.